Welcome to Fandom Power.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Wes here for Fandom Power, and we're back. It's week 2 of our 8-week series on The Mandalorian Season 2. And this week, I'm joined once again by producer Andy and our good friend Hank out in Halifax. Hello, gentlemen.
What's going on, folks?
Hello.
All is well. All's good in the hood, my friend. Chapter 10, The Passenger. Pretty interesting episode as far as I'm concerned. Big tonal change this time around.
For sure.
Certainly. It starts with a bang, I'll have to say that.
Yeah. I guess for me, when I'm thinking about the whole tonal thing, like it's weird. You know, last week I had mentioned how I thought that the Marshal played out like a mini movie, like a 3-act thing.
Yes.
And once again, I'm looking at this episode and it's like, yeah, you know, it follows that same 3-act structure, but the acts are not necessarily evenly spaced. Like the first act still feels like, you know, it could have very well have been an epilogue to The Marshal.
For sure.
It's kind of like a Bond opening. You know how there's
Yeah, almost.
the
Yeah.
story. They hit the ground running and then they sort of get into the next story.
Yeah. We all agreed we really loved The Marshal last week. And then after we went away, there was a couple things that came up in my reading that I'm like, oh my God, how did I miss that? Did anybody notice first time around that there was a change of aspect ratio in the episode?
I did not.
I did not.
Neither did I until I read
it. I went and I saw it and I was like, how did I miss that?
I know, I did the same thing. So
I did find myself watching this episode going,
looking for the technical stuff,
film tricks, and to the point of I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to miss like some crazy plot.
Yeah, I know. I was like, my head was all over the place trying to watch this one. So fortunately, I did watch this one. I guess on a technicality, I watched it 3 times. I took your advice and I chucked on the descriptive audio and the subtitles at the same time.
Yes, sir.
So that really helped when I was making my notes for the episode. But before we dive into this week, one other thing I meant to say last week, you know, how season 1 had sort of set this precedent that every episode Mando gets shot. And then I'm like, wait a minute. He went the whole episode of The Marshal and never once got shot.
It's true. I think I mentioned to you that I guess the Marshal filled that role.
He did. Oh, did he
time.
ever?
He got shot in the army.
Yeah.
In the flashback.
Oh, big time. But this episode more than made up for it. He's back. He's, you know, he's a bit of a blaster bolt magnet in this one.
Yep.
Certainly.
So The Passenger, this one, oh my Lord, I got to look it up because I didn't write it down. This one's about 41 minutes. Directed by, now I don't have it right in front of me, but
Peyton Reed.
That's right, Peyton Reed. So Peyton Reed, for everybody who doesn't know, was the director of both of the Ant-Man films for the MCU. So cool little
that suddenly
nugget.
Explains a lot.
Cool little nugget there.
Okay.
Yeah. Pull my notes back up here before I forget where I'm going with it. Yeah, so again, we have this continuation of where things kind of left off in The Marshal with Mando on his way back to Tatooine to try and find the next clue. But hey, that's something else we talked about last week too, and I think I'd even mentioned, like, what happens if there's no more clues? What does he do now? And that turns out to be the truth, that there is he doesn't have any other leads. So
yeah. It's true. So he's sort of really flying by his seat now.
Yeah, and talk about flying by the seat. How about that opening sequence with the speeder bike and the rope trap?
Completely juxtaposed to how slow the friggin' speeder bikes moved in the opener. Opener. They were crawling the whole episode. So
yeah.
He's wound it out. He's sort of done with Tatooine now. He's trying to get the frig out of here.
Yeah.
Because you guys noted, like, how are you guys having a conversation on these
bikes?
I
know. Like, how do you have a conversation when you're doing, like, in my mind, they're doing like 200 miles an hour, right?
Certainly. And now you can actually hear the bike winding out. Like
yeah,
the
big time.
Whine of the bike.
Big time. I could almost feel, as those guys were setting that trap, I could feel my chest tightening like, oh, this is going to suck.
It's true. And I sort of like the way it was like just a very rudimentary trap.
Yeah, like really low tech.
Basic stuff, like Ewok style.
It's almost like, like in the, oh my Lord, what is the story I'm thinking of? Like in Robin Hood, the merry men are just camped out waiting for guys to drive by on like their carriages and like, hey, give us your money. It was almost, it was almost like that simple.
The old version of what the Sand People would do, just like harassment.
Camped out on the ridge, taking pot shots at the racers. Oh, excellent point, though. I just cued myself to a point. I had no idea until I had read that they hired, we talked quite extensively about what we loved about the whole development of the Sand People and the cultural stuff and the language. And
that's right.
They hired a deaf actor to play one of the Sand People, and he developed that language as a real form of sign language.
You sent me that article, and that was amazing.
Actually. Yeah.
And it does go back to the way that they did things originally, and like the way people would just invent whole languages, and it just really gets such a cohesive feel. And I really liked the part of the article where he said like he was trying real hard not to have it
to separate it from American Sign
language, and be more steeped in sort of a desert. He did his research. It's
totally
fantastic.
Yeah, and just amazing to know that. I mean, a lot of people would criticize, and it's part of the culture we live in now, but everybody is critical of something. And as soon as, somebody makes this overt gesture to be inclusive, people are all over it. But I, for one, thought that's an amazing inclusion, and rightly so. There should be more of that. And if you're going to develop a sign language, who better to go to than people who are using it every day?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, for them to say like, oh yeah, here's a race that's been surviving for thousands of years, there's got to be a cultural attachment to that.
Oh, of course there is. I mean, it's not like it just, evolved out of nothing.
Yeah.
So I guess we can talk a little bit about the ambush itself and what happened in the course of it. Because, I mean, there's some interesting, well, not only is there, again, this overwhelming odds that Mando has to overcome in the fight, but there's also some interesting comedic beats there.
More and more, he's giving me Spider-Man vibes, and in this scene literally, but thematically, he's always having to use his intelligence or his wit in lieu of brute strength or actual skill at fighting to get the upper hand. And so when the character, when he shoots the tether out and pulls back the gun and ducks and knocks the two guys out. Yeah. Real big Spider-Man vibes.
Oh, me too. I thought those were really cool. Really clever, like you said. But it seems like every time that Mando is faced off against, at least when it's close up, it's always like the odds are not in his favor. Like it's always, the deck is always stacked against him, and he's always this underdog. And so I think that really lends itself to like some of the brutality in his style, because he knows that he's got to be able to subdue these people quickly.
Man, you said it in the recap, like it's he's earning every.
Oh my God, yeah, is he ever? yeah, he's got to work for it.
Yeah,
but
there's a line of dialogue in this where they say after the crash, and they go hard, they tumble hard.
Yeah, they do.
There's that little with the jetpack and. Manages to land upright. That's kind of cool, like Mando never falls. The child obviously lands fairly hard, but there's a line of dialogue where the characters that did the ambush are like, "Get the child."
Child.
For me, I was like, "Oh, those are bounty hunters."
Yeah,
but now they're working for the Empire because they've been tracking him. They know the child, so that made it a little deeper. These weren't just thugs that were ambushing somebody to get. Maybe some supplies or something.
Yeah.
They had a target. So that makes that a whole sort of deeper scene.
Yeah, it really does.
Working for Boba? Were they working for the Empire?
Who knows?
Kinds of cool stuff going on there.
I went the other way, and I actually, maybe it's because of the dialogue that he had with the last one where he's like, there's a lot of salvage here. We can make a deal. I just took it for granted that they were kind of just bandits out on the road. But when you say that, no, like they were going after the child, that they are bounty hunters, that makes way more sense.
Alternatively, though, one of them could be like a main bounty hunter, and he just picked up a couple thugs
Local goons.
in
Yeah,
Tatooine,
that's
like in
entirely
Mos Eisley,
possible too.
who are
Anybody
like,
get sort of an alternate Jawa vibe off that short guy?
We've seen that iron sort of toothy mod look. We've seen that before, and I kind
looked
of
for it and I couldn't find it. I thought it was in Solo, and I scoured Solo for it. I couldn't quite pin it down.
I thought it was in Force.
Character
That's
Force
what I
Awakens,
thought too. And
but I
no,
looked
it's
at
not
that,
him.
and it wasn't that.
Is it possible that it's one of the side characters at the market when Rey goes to sell her salvage to Ankara Plutt? Maybe
It could be.
I don't know.
I wasn't willing to go through like almost 9
No,
hours
me
of actual
neither.
sequel trilogy,
But I
I
knew-
know it's there somewhere.
I knew I
It's
had seen
very
that
familiar.
before. Yeah.
Maybe Maz Kanata's castle
Oh, that's entirely possible too.
could have been on that casino world for all I know.
Yeah,
It's
really.
very familiar to me. But until he speaks Huttese, he says Yoto.
Yeah.
And so I thought he was a Jawa until that, but it could still be a Jawa. It's kind of because the hood is reminiscent,
Armored
his side is certainly
Jawa?
diminutive. So I thought that's kind of a neat idea of maybe a Jawa bounty hunter.
Yeah. Entirely possible.
it could lend validity to it because he's so quick to hand over this bounty for some tech.
Oh, he drops instantly back into bargaining.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, though, I mean, is that because, of his own nature, or is that because of the line for Mando, if you harm the child, there's no place you won't be able to hide from me?
Well, this is it. And it's not the first time Mando's delivered that line, but in a different format to many characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, so it's a really good scene where he just says, okay, well, the backpack, and knowing full well that the guy's never going to get away with the backpack. So
yeah.
And we've even seen that before. Like, there's a foregone conclusion coming, but let's just see how we get there.
Yeah. I kind of wondered how he was going to let it play out. Because I mean, as soon as he started running, I'm like, he's just going to shoot him in the back? Like, there's no way this guy's getting away with it. But then for him to creatively toggle the wrist controls and ignite the jetpack, I mean, there was just a comedic moment there that I just didn't expect.
Yeah, and that was a good comedic beat for me because you get to watch him go up and come down, but
no
watching the child watch him do that.
Yeah,
you don't actually see him go up and come down. You see the beginning of him going up out of frame and then slamming back to the ground, but you watch the child watch him.
Yeah.
And then you get this again, the writing is astute and the acting is astute because you get this Han Solo shrug from Mando as the child looks up on him to say, like, what the heck, man?
What did you do? Why did you do that?
Han Solo shrug, and you get to see the mask emote again.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a close up there, and as you mentioned before, I don't want to steal your thunder.
No,
but
go
he's
for it.
Still covered in the crate vial.
Yeah, so that was a thing
Nice
for me
detail.
that I really enjoyed, and again, in that whole. This isn't part of the world building, but it lends itself to that in the sense that there is a sense of continuity that is absolute throughout this show, and I love and appreciate that they didn't just like, oh, okay, he's next thing we're riding off into the sunset and we're we're cleaned up again. No, he's still he's covered in goo.
That's right. It lends itself more to a novel than a
Big
episodic
time.
TV.
So I have to wonder, does Mandalorian armor come complete with air conditioning? Because man, was that a long walk.
I sort of toy, and again, being a crazy nerd, I was like toying with the physics, and I had some questions like, could he not have jetpacked to Mos Eisley? Was the
You
load
gotta
too
wonder,
big?
yeah.
Is there a jet fuel restriction? I started thinking all these crazy thoughts. Right? He's got 2 jetpacks.
I was watching how he had taken the, I guess it'd be one of the control arms off the speeder, and used it like a bindle to sort of balance the load. And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, there's the dragon meat, and then Boba Fett's jetpack to counterbalance that, and then his jetpack kind of hanging a bit lower to counterbalance the weight of the child on the front. Like, it was well thought out. I mean,
definitely, and like you say, he must have some kind of air conditioning or pressurization.
You think that there's some form of, like, even in the most rudimentary sense, some form of life support in there, like, even if it's
I would think so, and I know that there is in Stormtrooper armor, and certainly in TIE fighter pilot armor.
Oh yeah.
But and then you think, well, why did Finn have to strip his armor in the
Well, this is it. I mean, and
he wasn't wearing his helmet though, so
that's true.
Right.
And then we get the counter of that later on in the episode when we get to the ice planet, and then I go the other way. I'm like, well, is there a heating system as well? Like,
and
it's
it must
cold.
be internal, but certainly there's a scene there. I don't want to jump ahead too far,
No.
but where his gauntlet is frozen to the dashboard, and you actually
yeah
crack it off.
When they wake up from the crash.
Yeah.
Cool. So rolling back into Mos Eisley once again, back to the cantina. This time though, I never noticed it before. Was that sign always above the door? There was a lit sign.
I never noticed it before. I paused it. I tried to get Google Translate to do some of my work. I looked up Galactic Hutties. I looked up Trade Hutties. I looked up Trade Federation languages. I looked up Aurebesh. I looked up Proto-Aurebesh. And I could only find the first letter is either a B or an E, and I'm not even sure what language that was in. I went crazy on that door, actually.
I mean, Legends named the cantina Chalmun's.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's what we were looking at. And
also named at one point after the bartender too, because they were.
Yeah, that's right. Chalmun's was named after the Wookiee Chalmun, but that's a Legends thing. So I don't know if there's any truth to that.
I was too busy looking at the Jawas fighting over a piece of scrap.
It's true, and if in the descriptive audio with the captions on, it actually qualifies for the first time I've ever seen anyway in canon that the language that Jawas speak is Jawanese.
Jawanese, yeah. Interesting that the descriptive video, the narrator references the EV droid, but doesn't name it specifically, just EV droid.
Yes.
And again, looking at the Sand People, I mean, there's that nice contrast of like, oh, not Sand People, Jawas.
Yes.
These are native Jawas because they've got the traditional golden eyes. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So these are natives to Tatooine. But rolling back into the cantina, Andy, you picked out a little thing from the concept art, and I wasn't 100% certain because of the way that the scene was filmed, but
in the concept art, they are sitting in the same booth Han Solo and Greedo were sitting in.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I did get that vibe. I didn't like, it wasn't the foremost thought in my head, but I did sort of pop in and go, I wonder. But I didn't notice it in the concept art.
It's in the concept art, but I don't think it's actually the booth they're sitting in.
Yeah, because in the concept art, it shows her literally sitting in Han's seat with her feet up, cross-legged over the table with the scorch mark on the wall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But no surprise to find Peli at the cantina engaging in some less than savory activities where she's now engaged in a game of sabacc with what she refers to as Dr. Mandible. And
now the ant creature in lieu of the director makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
A little personal nod there. That's fantastic.
Dr. Mandible, to me, now they don't say it, there's no reference to it, but back in Legends, there was a race introduced called the Verpine, and they were this anthropomorphic ant-like race that they were introduced way back in the Courtship of Princess Leia. So since 1994, I have to wonder if this is a canonizing of the Verpine as a species now.
It's quite possible. It is reminiscent of a few other insectoid species, but this one is very, very sort of specific in terms of that.
Well, this is the thing too. Star Wars has always been, right from 1977. I mean, you look at the original pre-special edition scene in the cantina, and you look at the cast of characters that are in there, and I mean what do they call them? The Shistavenen. Mm-hmm. The Wolfman is literally an off-the-rack Halloween Wolfman mask.
That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's no surprise that common, everyday creatures in mythology have crept their way in there. And so, sure, giant ant. Why not?
Pretty great.
Yeah.
You get to see she's such a good bargainer. Like, she's, you know what I mean? She plays Mando knowing that she's and gets the guy to ante the bet up 500.
Yeah.
She sort of hesitates and picks that number out of the air. You know what I mean? Like, that may be not what his actual call was.
You said he was on a hot streak.
But then we get to find out it actually is sabacc because she gets an idiot's array.
Yeah. I went to sabacc right away just based on the shape of the cards, and I'm like, those are the same cards that appeared in Solo.
Yep.
Slowly. Yeah.
So the deal is that Dr. Mandible apparently can provide a clue. And like you say, as long as the bet is anteed, he'll give up the information, which he does. I mean, even though he loses the card game, true to his word, he says that there's a contact, and the contact will meet you at the hangar, which I thought was a really neat thing, because there's a wipe shot, and we get to the get to the hangar, and then we get this neat little close up of the Treadwell droid.
Yep.
Yeah.
Using one of its arms as a spit as their I wrote it down in my notes. I'm like, cool, pod racer engine barbecue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so again, another little Star Wars nod with the Treadwell droid, which we've seen again. We saw them in A New Hope, and then we saw them in Empire. I think Han Solo actually basically chastises one, or he holds one up to talk to it when he's trying to talk about leaving Hoth. But
there's one in Clone Wars too on a
yeah.
class.
So at the hangar now, we get introduced to our next new character, who's only ever referred to as Frog Lady. And
I called her Frog Mom in my notes. And
did you?
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. Am I the only one that thought that she looked more like, and maybe it's because the humanoid body, but my initial thought before, on the first time around when I watched it, just for the sake of watching, I thought, oh, she looks like a gecko.
Yeah, like the Geico mascot.
Yeah.
Gecko. Yeah, I immediately started, and I'm a maniac, so I immediately started looking up amphibian races.
Sure.
And there's plenty.
Well, you sent me quite a few, and I could not decide on any one of them. So
some more of the rather than the visuals, their descriptions fit better. So
yeah.
I'm thinking maybe since most of the ones I sent you were legends, again, it's maybe just an amalgam of things that they're trying to canonize. It's pretty cool.
Well, this is it, and I think for us as really lifelong Star Wars fans who have been with the franchise through all of its mediums and all of its different forms, we really thrive on this stuff, trying to figure it out. And it makes me so happy that the producers and the creators are mining legends and the old EU, and they're pulling stuff forward. It makes me it sounds silly, but it just makes me happy.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a deep and varied fishing pond, man. There's tons and tons of stuff to pull out for years. It's quite crafty of them, actually.
I agree. Interesting point. So Frog Lady, is the same actress who bodied Queel throughout season 1. Yeah.
And interesting voice. It's the guy who voiced the clones.
D. Bradley Baker.
That's correct. From
D. Bradley
Clone Wars
Baker.
cartoon.
I pulled that out of an article. Now, I don't know how valid that is.
I read that from an article as well.
Did you? Okay, because I'm not sure what the validity is on that point. I mean, I listened to it as much as I could, and I could not.
Frog Squawk.
Well, exactly. Speaking of Frog Squawk, Pelly's go at it was pretty convincing.
It's pretty great. You have to think maybe they modeled the language around what she was able to do first.
Maybe. Hey, can you do this sound like a frog?
Pretty great.
Exactly.
And I think she also speaks. I don't think she speaks it audibly, but she certainly understands Dr. Mandible. So she's kind of the deep character.
Yeah, and she really is. But again, I mean, if you lived on Tatooine, if you lived, what's the line from Obi-Wan? The you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. So I mean, if you had every denizen of the known universe strolling through, you might pick up a thing or two.
It's true.
So, Frog Lady, turns out that she's got the clue, and she tells through Pelly that there is a Mandalorian covert one system over, and it's on, we've never heard of this place before, the estuary moon of Trask, which is orbiting a gas giant named Coliban. Now these are planets that I don't think we've really heard before.
No, I immediately looked them both up, and neither of them are on the maps.
No,
if you will.
No, exactly. And according to Frog Mom, it's her husband who is settled on Trask waiting for them, who has actually she claims he's actually seen them. So that's the clue. We're headed to Trask. And
the plot point here is that they have to go at sublight.
Yeah.
Something about hyperspace, and this is fishy to me, or amphibian-y to me, but something about hyperspace will harm the eggs. And I'm just trying to figure that out.
I don't know. I just assumed maybe it was that they're so delicate that the transition to hyperspace would just be too much stress on them. But
possibly the initial thrust.
But at the same time,
there's some time dilation there that could affect them.
Maybe. I mean, again, she did say that there was a finite amount of time that they had to be fertilized. That it had to be. Yeah, she says the equinox, but what's that?
It seemed to be counting down in Arabesh too.
Container. I didn't really dial in on the container. I think the only thing about the container that I noticed was, and maybe it's me drawing conclusions, is that later on in the episode when she's pointing at the container, I think that the indicator on one side is like a temperature gauge, and that the eggs are too cold, which is what drives her out.
She does wrap them up there.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Let's talk about Caliban for a second here, because pretty sure through all of the trailers that we've seen up to this point that Caliban is the world that everybody thought might have been Mon Cala.
I'm not convinced, because they said it was a gas giant. So I'm not convinced that world...
Oh, sorry. Caliban, would be the gas giant. Trask.
Trask, maybe. Yeah,
the moon that they're supposed to be going to.
That could be.
Where Frog Mom's husband is waiting for them.
I do know that they keep... Well, and there was Quarren fisher, like sailors
on that boat. Yeah.
So that could be further along, but they do lead you to believe, like you are led to believe by the Force Awakens trailers, that they're on Tatooine when it's in fact completely separate.
Yeah, of course.
World, and they've done that, like Last Jedi. It wasn't Hoth, but it was another ice world. So there's that.
Well, and even this episode, I mean, look at the speculation that the ice world in this episode, everybody was like, is it Ilum? Because, there's lightsaber crystals there, and that makes
I got Ilum from the trailer, but now that I feel like they were just sort of woke up in mid-flight.
Yeah.
And they, having looked at the galactic maps that are at least available, there is some that are, considered canon, sorry.
Right.
That Ilum and Tatooine, in fact, nowhere near each other, not one sector over at any rate.
No.
And that Ilum is in the unknown regions, or at least on the border, quite close to Exegol. I found that kind of fascinating on a whole other tip, actually. I just fear that this is just another ice world.
Yeah,
not
and again,
they're quite common.
Andy and I were talking pre-show here, and we were talking specifically about this whole Ilum thing, and I had suggested that this is just an unnamed ice planet that we've never seen before, but Andy had a different take on it.
Somebody had mentioned in what I read that it was Maldo Creus again.
The same ice planet from episode 1
of season 1.
In season 1.
That's quite possible, because we haven't traveled very far, especially at sublight.
No.
That's very, very possible.
But then we get into this whole thing where, and again, pre-show, and you can appreciate this, Hank, as a fan of all things Star Wars, and I'm going to use the role-playing game because it's been the most sort of meaty when it comes to the details, but remember giant gazetteer that came in some of those books that laid out the distance in hours of how long it would take to travel between worlds?
I do. I don't remember any specifics,
well,
but I do remember that.
But so remember, there was categories of travel time. So there was within the same system, within same solar system, and then there was same planetary system, and then there was another system within the same sector, but then going from two different sectors, and it just got exponentially longer. That's right. And then suddenly in the Disney era of Star Wars, particularly, it seems like it's just we can go anywhere we want to within a matter of minutes, and they don't treat it like there's any real travel time. It's like we need to get to sending a message like, we'll get the Resistance to come to help us at Maz Kanata's castle, and they show up instantly.
It certainly gives you the impression that very little time occurs while in hyperspace.
I feel like it's one of the great inconsistencies of Star Wars, and there are a few, but This is the one that really, kind of gets up in my craw the most.
I have a theory that we'll have to talk about on another show, but just quickly, I have a theory that the entire New Hope after Luke wakes up and R2 has gone.
Yeah.
From the moment Luke wakes up and R2 has run off and he goes to find him until the Death Star explodes.
Yeah.
Is less than 24 hours.
It's entirely possible. I mean,
I could break it down for you, but we'll do it at another time.
That'd be a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that. So now Mando's not happy because he feels like this is just he says, I'm not a taxi. And Pele's like, yeah, I know, but that's the condition. So
the line, can you vouch for her? Oh, I'd vouch for her with my life.
Yeah.
How long have you known her? I just met her
10 minutes ago.
I'm a good judge of character.
I met her 10 minutes before you walked in here. What?
But the other part in that scene, the look coming from the child.
Oh, I know. So who was it? Was it you? Somebody sent me a message with a reference to a billy goat.
It wasn't me.
It was you, Hank?
I think it was me.
Yeah, he's part billy goat.
Yeah. Yeah. He'll eat anything.
So certainly there is a longing look there that suggests that maybe there's something savory or unsavory about to happen. But
I was talking with my wife about this, and this could be the sort of the indicators of a darker side to this character, because he keeps eating them even though he knows it's wrong.
I know.
And so this is where I get his alignments shifting.
Yeah.
That I talked about before, into a chaotic sort of good.
Yeah.
If you use a D&D analogy, but yeah, because I mean, we really don't know that. I mean, and it could just be, I'm hungry. It certainly could be, but there is recognition that this is a precious cargo towards the end, and he's still popping them in his mouth like, I don't really care.
There's 3 separate occasions where it's like, don't eat that. No.
My wife immensely.
How many did you eat?
It bothered my wife immensely.
There's another side to this, though, and if we strip out all of the morality of it and we look at it just from an entertainment perspective, we go back to season 1, and there's that whole moment when we all laughed at it when he literally devoured a frog.
Certainly.
And then
but there's
another episode where he spits one out.
Right. The kids like kind of shame him into
They're
spitting
like,
it out.
ooh. So he spits out the frog. But then here we are with Frog Lady and frog eggs. Right?
Yeah.
Like, ha ha ha.
An organic move from live frogs to big giant frog eggs.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly we see Yoda making snake stew, so there's a precedent for reptiles and amphibians in their diet.
Sure. Yoda might be a Jedi Master, but he's not vegetarian.
This is it.
Yeah. So throughout the whole trip, there's this begrudging, we're going to do it. And we see Mando at least trying to, contact her. I found it funny in a like just a silly kind of way that like he basically gives her the flight attendant briefing.
No,
it's true. He was almost too loquacious in this episode for me after having been so laconic for a season in an episode.
Do you think so?
He spoke quite a bit in this episode.
Sure he did. I'm going to talk when we get towards the end of it. I'm going to come back and talk sort of thematically about some of the stuff that I picked out of this and see if you picked up on it too. But
Sure.
There is a lot of talking, and there's a lot more nuance here than what I originally gave the episode credit for. And it was only after my second and into my third viewing where I really dialed in on it. But there is some major character development here that maybe the casual viewer doesn't pick up, but we'll get to that.
Very cool. Okay.
So there's this language issue, and it's pervasive throughout the whole episode, where it's like he wants to talk to her, he's trying to communicate with her, and she's frustratingly trying to communicate with him, and they try to find a common ground, and he
got a minor enemy mine vibe kind of thing.
Almost, yeah.
A minor tinge of it.
And so they're resolved that they're going to head out on their way. So Mando plots a course into the Razor Crest Navicomputer and decides that, hey, I'm going to get some rack, and suggests that she does the same thing, only to be awoken a short time later by an alarm from the cockpit. And when he runs back up to the cockpit, we get this cool little it's just a couple seconds, but you get a shot of the console, the panel, and there's a couple of Orbesh phrases there, and this week I got them.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch this week.
I got them. So it's on the bottom right-hand side in the big red part was proximity alert, and then the main message across the center of the screen was incoming comm. And it is, in fact, an incoming comm from the 2 New Republic X-Wings that have pulled up
M111.
alongside. Yeah, so the M111 thing, I'm going to get to that because I mentioned it to Andy today coming into the studio, and I'm like, am I stretching? Like, am I really pulling at strings here, or is this really?
Think so.
Yeah. So we're introduced to a new character we've never met before, and it's Captain Carson Teva. Now, Captain Teva is played by Korean-Canadian actor Paul Sun Hyung Lee. And if anybody who's not familiar with him, he's the lead in Kim's Convenience on the CBC.
That is true.
So Andy was saying that apparently he's notorious for going out to conventions and cosplaying in Star Wars cosplay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He is now officially in the 501st.
So I'm
That's
wondering
fantastic.
which garrison has claimed him, though. Is it the Toronto garrison?
I believe it is Toronto.
Is it? Okay, that's cool. And again, Trapper Wolf, played by Dave Filoni, makes another appearance.
Awesome. He's a regular in his own show.
Well, here's the thing, and I picked this out. I had to go back this morning because I was thinking about it. We know that Filoni is instrumental in sort of his own little way with Clone Wars and Rebels. Of all the characters that he's created, some of the most the affections that he has are for Commander Wolf, Clone Commander Wolf. Hence, his character, no surprise that his character's name is Wolf. But I went back and had a look at season 1, the episode 7, the prisoner. And he's got a new helmet this season. I don't know if you picked that out. Yeah. Last season he was wearing just a mostly plain white with some blue and gold accents for the New Republic logos. But this episode, it's a brand new helmet. It's mostly gray. And did anybody pick out the big wolf logo on the front of the helmet?
I did not. That's
fantastic. Yeah. No surprise, though.
If you see pictures of him in a lot of his, just pictures of him
appearances
on social media and stuff, he does wear a lot of wolf t-shirts.
He's got a wolf thing. I mean, I was saying,
he does have a wolf thing. Rocks the cowboy hat.
With the wolf pin.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy you kind of want to have a beer with, eh?
I agree, and I mean, add that one to my list of celebrities I would like to meet. I think he would be cool to have a, even a 10-minute conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
But so Wolf and Carson Teva, and the exchange of dialogue that they have is kind of funny. It's almost like getting pulled over by the police. Do you know what I mean?
Like 100% that vibe.
Yeah.
But pretty friendly police.
Well, that was
gone either way there.
It's like they were Canadian police.
Yeah. Yes. It's kind of true.
They got pulled over by the OPP.
That's right. And so and they're going to let him go. He's trying to talk his way out of it several times.
He interestingly enough, I got this feel he tries to pull a bluff. And it really reminded me of the scene in episode 4 in A New Hope in the Death Star. We're fine here. Everything's okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It had that same kind of vibe, right?
And immediately they sort of don't fall for it.
No, they don't.
And there's a neat piece of dialogue there that gives us some indication as to the world too. So he says, "Oh, I'm pre-Empire surplus. I'm not required to run a beacon." And they say, "Well, that was the old law, and now this is New Republic territory.
Yeah,
so here's the new laws." So that's kind of telling to me about how things are changing in the galaxy, or at least in the sectors that are controlled by the New Republic.
Yeah, and I mean, they make a point of, they mention, when we're patrolling the Rim. So, whereas the Empire, you were led to believe that the Empire didn't have as big of a presence in the Outer Rim, the New Republic seems to be projecting a little bit more. Now, is that because, we talked about this on the last episode, what's up with the Imperial Remnant? With them with the leadership in disarray, are there more and more of them turning to the Outer Rim as a place to hide? And that's why the New Republic's presence has stepped up?
They're patrolling.
So Mando has a line of dialogue when he's talking to Frog Mom, and he says, traveling through sublight is very dangerous because of pirates or warlords.
Yeah.
Immediately got he meant Imperial warlords.
Yeah, I never put that together, but now that you say that, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course he even throws in the "May the Force be with you."
Yeah, and it's smarmy too. He actually
Yeah.
delivers the line awesome. He
Yeah,
delivers it
yeah.
smarmy. Like there's no, I don't believe in this shit at all.
But hey, if it gets me out of a traffic ticket, I'm all for it.
That's exactly what it was.
And then Teva demands that, send us a ping. You're not running a
Not
transponder.
before he plays with him a little.
I know.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
Just like a Canadian cop.
I love the delivery. It was almost Columbo like, "Oh, and one more question."
Did you murder the chick?
Yeah. But again, in the bluff, it's like, "Oh, I'm not sure that hardware is online." Oh, we'll wait.
Oh, he's still trying to. He's still trying to think his way out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, he gets to the point where finally it's like, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to bluff my way out of this," and so he fires up his transponder, and then what does Wolf say? He's like, "Carson, can you change over to channel 2?"
One of my favorite scenes, actually, that I've seen out of all the episodes. I have to admit, there's parts of this episode that were a little iffy for me, but
Sure.
one of my favorite scenes of all the episodes, all 10 I've seen, is when they both lock ass foils.
Yeah, when they change their posture.
Like I got goosebumps, and like even though in this situation those are the bad guys,
Yeah.
it gave me goosebumps.
It's like when, again, using the traffic stop analogy, when you're sitting on the side of the road and a second cruiser pulls up behind the first one and you're like, uh-oh. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they change their posture, and they're like, "Hey, we're out here patrolling for Imperials, and if you can't confirm that you're not an Imperial, you're going to have to follow us to something called the Outpost at Adelphi."
Adelphi.
Another name that I don't think we've ever heard before.
I thought I looked that. It sounds familiar, possibly from a Clone Wars episode.
Maybe.
Or there's so many random reference drops to
Yeah.
names of places.
What's funny is when you're using resources like Wikipedia and you start plugging in these names, like this information is going up so fast. Like sometimes the only reference is the episode itself. So you're like, well, that's not helpful. I know that came
like
up.
A brand new reference.
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly like when you're looking up pilot names and stuff from the show, like that's all you're going to get, but always look for a Legends reference for, at least I do anyway, to see, is there some basis of like origin that, is this another pull back from the tickle trunk and we're going to haul it forward? But I couldn't find one for Adelphi. So interesting. Could just be a throwaway name. Maybe not. Maybe we'll go back to it later. Who knows?
Could be revisited.
And then we have this like pure eye candy Top Gun-esque. Basically, it's a car chase in space.
We got a runner.
Yeah.
Delphi is a Greek word for brother.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Get the chase scene, which I thought was like, it was pure eye candy for me, and I loved it. I wished it would.
Complete vibes of Bespin's, of Solo's approach to Bespin to Cloud City.
Yeah.
Except with speed.
Oh, big time.
But all while maintaining that Canadian cop, like, don't make us do this. Come on.
Yeah, there was this.
Yeah,
like they're pleading with him, like, "Come on, man, just pull over, because don't make us shoot you down. Like, it's not what we're here for, and you're not really that bad of a dude. We don't think anyway." But
he tries to get crafty again, and he cuts the engines and drops backwards through the clouds, plummeting.
Very, very crafty.
Really good stuff. And then flips the engines back on and drifts, and it does these the Poe Dameron style kind of maneuvers.
Big time.
So it was kind of neat to see that. And then actually my favorite part, again, I know they're the antagonists in the scene, but he breaks out of the clouds and they're still right on his tail, because after all, these are Republic pilots, man, in X-Wings.
And they are X-Wings.
You can't get away that fast.
Exactly. And I mean, Frog Mom is, there's no denying she's like sheer panic mode. Like she's freaking out. Yeah. What I really loved about it was the moment where throughout the chase, I don't know if you picked up on it, but like you can see and hear Mando's heavy breathing, whether it's a mixture of G-forces and adrenaline, but it's there and it's palpable, and it brings me so much more into the moment. Like this is a real stressful moment.
No, certainly. I did note that. I noted it in the scenes coming up in the caverns that we're going to talk about. I noticed that a lot in those scenes. He's putting out maximum effort.
Oh, big time.
just to stay alive, always.
Big time. And I mean, this whole, again, pre-Empire surplus, and then like people like, oh, Razor Crest, wow, that's like Old Republic. You really get a feel for it. Like he's pushing it to the limit. Yeah.
Yeah. He is putting every ounce on his sleeve.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And then we have this, I don't want to call it a crash. It's not, but it's not
run. We get a mini trench run.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, it's super excited. Why not?
It's somewhere between a crash and a controlled skid, I guess.
And he cuts the engines, turns around, and then fires the engines to actually slow
brake.
Momentum.
Yeah, as a brake, some kind of braking maneuver.
I wrote down in my notes, Tatooine drift.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. And then of course that icy crag that he kind of slides in under, and then that nice, really cool shot, like in terms of like the cinematography with the two X-wings, and they kind of pass by. And then there's some chatter about, break up and you go north and we'll cover more ground that way. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So you're kind of given that. And I thought about this throughout the rest of the episode. It's like, those two guys still got to be out there. Like they wouldn't give up the search that easily.
No, exactly.
Which we find out later to be true, but not before we get into what I would call the third act of the episode. The crest being too heavy for the ice sheet that they now are sitting on. The ice buckles, and then they are like literally dropped into this like cavern, and it's not a nice landing.
There's a little nod the way it drops the ass at end drops, and then it lists side to side and then drops through. It reminded me of the way the Ewoks took out the chicken walker.
Oh yeah, the
awkward sort of stop motion but it looked like they sort of mimicked that, but in a way cleaner fashion.
Yeah, almost.
I don't know if it was a positive nod to it, but it felt like it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the one of the more pervasive sort of things throughout Star Wars is, not necessarily the visual callbacks, but the emotional, emotional callbacks. How
like if we jump back a bit to when the scavenger or whatever took the backpack, and he lands the backpack in front of him, and then it falls over in the dirt. It was the same comedic beat as R2 falling over after the Jawa shot.
Yes.
The exact same comedic beat.
No, it totally was.
Perfect.
I appreciate that stuff. If you can take me back to being 10 years old again, it's a win.
Yeah. It's hard for me to believe stuff like that isn't on purpose.
I totally believe it is on purpose. And I mean, but the true success, I guess the mark of success is that we do have those feelings and we do connect to our inner child, and we are transported back to that place where it was like, oh yeah, this is what I love about Star Wars. Besides, space wizards and lightsabers and all those other things that we love. But yeah.
Oh no, so the crest smash is hard.
Oh, big time. And everybody is knocked out. And
yeah, that's something we don't see because he gets punched in the head routinely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. So there's a moment here where his head smacks down. You go, oh well, maybe Beskar has its flaws.
I guess so.
His head must have wrapped off the inside of it.
Well, I mean, realistically, there's this whole thing when it comes to those types of injuries. There's what they call coup contre coup, right? Where whatever it's like when you have a car crash, when your seatbelt tightens up, everything that's inside your body is still moving forward and slams against your chest wall and your cavity walls.
Limits, yeah.
So it's the same thing. I mean, if you're dressed up in a tin can and you're dropped on your head's still rattling the inside of the tin can, right?
That's right. And your brain's going to hit the side of your skull.
For sure.
Plus, he was, like you say, he was physically labored trying to pull those maneuvers and outrun those
big
guys.
time.
Like he's driving a 57 Chevy, and they all got Corvettes.
Well, it's almost like he stood up in the seat when he's like hammering forward on the control sticks, and he's like just shoving them as hard as he can, right?
Yeah. No, it was maximum effort, like you say. So that also lent to the fact that he just blacked out at the end.
Yeah, totally. But again, his name's on the show, so I mean, Mando's got to come through. So he wakes up, and so more of this character development that I was alluding to. And what does he immediately do? He starts looking for the child and the eggs,
Yeah.
He's still talking to her. She's unconscious, and he's doing everything that you should do as a first responder when you're, talk to the people who are injured. And he does that. Doesn't put a hand on her to say, are you okay? But he's still talking to her and trying to go through the motions and do what's right.
Is she not like fetal on the ground in this position?
Yeah,
Doesn't that
she's
help
like
her?
on the floor of the cockpit, I
Yeah,
think.
doesn't he help her into a chair?
I don't recall.
But
Maybe?
he says, yeah, I got to find you blankets to keep warm, and then he
Yeah,
goes into
yeah,
the
yeah.
back. And for me, there was another really great little detailed nod that his armor is frosted over everywhere.
Yeah, and did you notice that there's a subtle change between a couple of the scenes where it's like slightly frosty to really frosty?
Yes.
You know, almost that gives us that sense of, you know, passage of time and that things are moving.
Yeah, like there's a little bit of snow buildup on the crest now.
Yeah, and it's getting
Yeah,
colder.
yeah. I mean, so like dropping into the main hold, and like the first thing we see, you know, even though the camera is pointed at Mando's face, we can see the snow floating around inside the main hold, and you automatically have this sense of like, it's bad.
It's real bad.
It's really bad.
Yeah, this was one of the first times I felt like serious tension.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you know, you can not know how they're going to get out of a situation and just go for along for the ride. But I actually, my mind was trying to race ahead of the script. Going,
Yeah, me too.
What are we doing here with it? With there's a huge gaping hole in the ship.
How's he going to get out of this?
The crest.
Yeah.
I was starting to speculate we're going to have to come back to this planet to go fetch the Boba Fett armor at some point.
Oh yeah,
Maybe,
sure.
Maybe there's going to be a race for the armor, so my mind was actually going crazy just from that little hole in the hull plot point.
Yeah. Well, the hole is not so little. It's like a big gaping gash that's
Mando size.
Yeah, it's the size of a person. And so we're left in this sense of like, we don't know what to do. And he even says as much. He alludes to like, it's really bad and we'll wait till nightfall and then I'll have a better idea of what our prospects are going to be. So until then, you know, let's have a nap.
She does protest in her
She does. And that's kind of where she makes that indication and gesture towards the canister, the egg canister. And that's where I kind of thought, is she like indicating that's where I get that's a temperature gauge?
Temperature. And I got from that scene either a temperature gauge, like you said, more so after you said it even, but I was thinking maybe even a countdown to the
equinox or something.
The eggs are good for.
Oh, maybe.
And she certainly makes this matronly, she sacrifices her warmth and wraps the
Yes, she wraps the canister and then kind of leans her body over it.
And then you see a nice little scene of the child doing the same thing as he crawls up on Mando, arm, and snuggles into the nice warm Beskar.
Well, again, talking about that whole lone wolf and cub thing and getting into that character development that I was talking about really comes through in the next scene, because there's a rude awakening. And it's kind of cool. A nice little callback to the voice of Richard Ayoade from the IT Crowd, who voiced Zero. So Frog Lady has now tapped into Zero's vocabulary, and she's now using him because, let's face it, not only is he a murderer, but he's still a protocol droid. So tapping into his language ability, she's able to finally communicate with him.
This freaked me out for the character a little bit. I didn't get all these vibes off him. And maybe it's pretty standard fare to be able to hack a security droid, get past its protocols, know how to pull its vocabulary, and know how to access the correct language, and then get it. You know, maybe that's standard fare.
Maybe.
But she seems to be exhibiting some skills that I would attribute, just role playing game wise, as being like seriously niche,
big time.
And it made me start to actually question the character.
Really?
Like, why is she luring Mando to Trask?
Oh, I don't know.
It made me start thinking like that.
Well, she pulls out a couple more things later on.
Are you still of the mindset that there's more to her that we're going to learn later?
Well, so I think so. And we can get to that further, because there's some things that she does soon that make me go, oh,
okay.
Why did you make those choices?
Okay.
And then kind of go, well, we're definitely going to get her at the beginning of the next episode.
Yeah.
Why did she get 2 episodes and that friggin' cool Marshall only gets 1?
He gets 1.
I started thinking like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that I'm overthinking it a bit, but I think that there's more to her than meets the eye.
That may very well be true.
There's not a lot of this story that actually moves the main story forward.
No.
The plot points that I get out of the whole thing, if I were to take the whole thing in a nutshell, the plot points that I get are, we have a tentative alliance with the New Republic.
Yep.
And that we have a disturbing trend with the child.
Yes.
And that we have Mando sometimes is willing to balk at his responsibility or his Mandalorian creed. And in this very scene where she wakes the robot up, she reminds him of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, does the average person also know about the Mandalorian creed? So I think there's something actually deeper going on here.
When you say that, that suggests to me that maybe it's not just the husband that's seen them. Maybe she's got some more.
There might be more at stake.
She might have more knowledge than what she's let on.
Right, or she may be under duress in some situation and manipulated into being a puppet too. So there's all kinds of things. Made me start thinking, because we haven't seen it yet, but isn't the slave hut, the slave one, somewhere on Tatooine? Does Jabba have his own? Could Boba Fett be following them?
If it's not been scavenged by Jawas by now.
Something. It just made my brain is certainly percolating tons for an episode that was ostensibly a bottle episode.
Yeah.
You're listening to Fandom Power.
So this is where I want to talk about the plot point. That's not really a plot point, but this the character development aspect that I had referred to before, because it's in this scene where when she's finally able to talk to him and she insists that he keeps his word and that he carries out his end of the bargain. I thought about it for a little bit, and especially when I watched it the second and third time, by the time I was done, I was very much of the mindset that, this really speaks towards Mando's development as a father. And I say that because in the first season, he's so, we established that, he sees himself in the child as a foundling, right? And so he feels that sense of obligation and kinship out of that, to maybe not have this kid, grow up the same way that he did. So he does on some level take it on himself to surrogate this child, right?
That's right.
So now we're seeing an evolution of that. We're seeing more character growth where we've had an entire season devoted to his protection of the child, and he's very much just that. Like, that's his primary focus in everything. The child. And only now that we're face to face with another parent who questions his morality on being a parent. Why is your dedication to your child more important than mine?
Nice.
And okay. So only in her insistence that he keeps his word, and only through that canting of the Mandalorian code does he kind of go, yeah, you're right. And even though
does actually throw the, or is this just a story that's told to children?
Children. Right.
Yeah,
and so there's,
she does actually, that's good. Very good. Yeah. She does actually throw that right in his face.
It hits me as a parent that's where it comes from. And I mean, I totally see that. Like, as a parent, we do anything for our kids, and you can see that she's as dedicated to her clutch of eggs as he is to the child. And only in that moment does he realize that there's more to it than just, the mission, that there's a more familial element to his relationship than just getting it to its own kind.
It's true. And he's still coming to terms with it in light of what you're saying. He's still, because he even says, fine, but this wasn't part of the bargain. So he's still resisting, but he knows what he has to do. It's
begrudging, but it's getting through. And so, like you said it in our last episode, he's a malleable character. And this is a very good example of that, even if it's, his own, like, through his own sense of self-discovery.
Yeah, no, that's really astute, Wes.
Yeah, I really dug in on this because originally I was kind of like, oh, this feels like one of those throwaway episodes that I talked about in the first season. But after watching it a couple times around, I'm like, you know what? It may not drive the narrative, but it sure does, develop the character on a huge level. Yeah.
Well, that actually puts parts of my heart at ease when you say that, and I examine it in that light.
Yeah.
Because there are parts of this episode where I was like, this may be my least favorite episode so far.
Well, there's only 2, so I mean, it's a 50-50 chance.
No, I mean out of all 10.
Oh, out of all 10. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we'll get into that. And
Sure.
You've actually given me more to think about. And
Cool.
now I'm wavering to your
But
side.
he does, like you say, begrudgingly. He gets up, he grabs the toolbox, and it's like, this isn't part of the deal.
Out into the cold.
And then there's this moment where, like, I didn't catch it right away. I wasn't. To me, it was almost like a couple of seconds, because there's a wipe, and then he's welding, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he's like literally pulled out the tools and he's working on it right now. But later on, realize that no, there has been some passage of time.
Yeah, he's
But
got some frost buildup there.
Yeah, and I think that's the visual cue that he's been out there for a while, and I didn't pick up on that right away.
It was a nice wipe too, because they pan up to the sun still being up there in the sky, beaming through the hole in the cavern ceiling, and then they wipe right to the arc of the welder.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice, like just filmmaking wise, nice wipe.
And in another kind of parental, way, like playing out in the driveway when your dad's working on the car and your dad's attention is split between the car and you. Hey,
come here.
Make
yourself useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the child's over there he's doing the dad, look at me, dad, look at me, dad. And he's not interested. But as soon as he walks away, hey, where are you going? So like
he calls him kid in this episode quite a few times. And I'm starting to like that, because I wrote down in my notes, why hasn't he named him yet?
I don't know.
Like, it's sort of like, I guess I'm not Mandalorian, but it's instinct, you name your children or your pets, and I use the example, and maybe this is bad, but even Poe names Finn about 30 seconds after he meets him.
Oh, I know,
right?
Yeah.
So
what's your name? FN2187.
So you'd think you would have given him just a casual, but so I think that they're moving towards "Hey Kid," which is nice.
Yeah,
and I would take that as almost like a de facto name, because how many times, even in my notes, I get tired of writing the child. The child.
Oh, I know.
I don't want to call him Baby Yoda.
No, neither do I.
Right. So the kid or kid it can work for me.
Mind you, if we ever get to a point in the series where they pull the wool. Pull the sheets back and it is a clone of Yoda, I'm going to be like, damn, boy, did I ever call that wrong.
I'll high five myself.
Yeah, you should.
And I think he's actually, and this may be looking forward to future seasons or later on in this season, but he's starting to be way more, and maybe this is to sell toys too, but he's starting to enunciate and vocabulate, if you will.
I got that too. The child, you mean?
And he's almost starting to say words.
Almost.
In that scene in particular, he's saying the same sounds multiple times.
I got that too.
Form words, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, like in terms of development. Will we see fully formed sentences? We talked about this before, like where do we think he was age-wise, and I think we came up with somewhere under 2 human years, but I mean, if he's getting to like that point where he's forming words, like that's some serious development.
That's right, and that's the perfect timeline, like that we start to develop words between 18 months and some kids are more advanced, some are a little slower, but on a timeline, it's average that sort of age. To develop language skills. Yeah,
exactly. So I guess moving forward in the episode, once he goes over to see where the child is gone, he now realizes that something is afoot.
Yeah, he wasn't just waving; he was pointing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Cool.
I at first didn't get that was Frog Mom's footprints.
I didn't either.
Because they weren't frog shaped.
No.
Sorry.
Well, I mean,
I thought someone had come and gone.
I watched this.
Like, uh-oh.
The second and third time around, I paid attention to her feet, and they are very much like lady, like fashion boots almost.
Yes.
With a slight heel, maybe black.
It's true.
Totally fashionable. But yeah,
might have been Timberlands.
Another little use of Mandalorian technology. Mando toggles a switch on his helmet, and he gets a thermal imaging display, and we can see that the footprints are emulating a heat signature, so they must be fresh. And they use that to track Frog Mom. And it turns out they find her. She's gone off. I don't know if she's... This is the thing. How did Frog Mom know enough to want... Did she just blindly wander out in that cave network? Or do you think she had some kind of...
built-in thermal vision that
Possibly.
says, hey, there's heat there.
Maybe.
That could be. There's a lot of things there. This is where we dove a little bit into campiness for me.
Yeah.
But it's possible that she could sense the warmth in alien ways that we couldn't be sure about. Certainly,
Possibly.
she's found a safe place and a warm place for herself and her eggs.
Well, natural hot spring, it just maybe just a little convenient for the purpose of the episode, but then in the same time, I juxtapose that up against the all the monolithic pods, and why were all those monolithic pods there? And maybe because that's a heat source, that's why they're there.
That makes perfect sense in lieu of the next scene.
Yeah.
They did. If you watch it, like I watched it like 6 or 7 times, and
Yep.
if you watch that scene, you barely get the pods in all the transitions up until the child actually interacts with one.
Yeah, until
They're
you
just
see him
subtly in the background, but they're not really part of it.
You just kind of write them off.
You actually get the experience that, oh my God, there's hundreds, if not thousands, in this room.
I wrote them off
do a
as
good
being
job.
Stalagmites of some kind
Mm-hmm.
until
Lauren's been doing a lot of fungus photography and
Yeah.
cool stuff like that. So they reminded me a lot of mushrooms.
Oh yeah. Even in the way, they really did, especially having that fleshy quality to them.
I have to admit, when he first peeled it open, I thought we were going to get spores.
Oh
Star
my
Trek spores.
God.
I thought he was going to,
Well, so here's where I go back to the episode having a big tonal shift, tonal change from the previous episode, and it, even within itself, we have this another tonal shift, and I'm like, this is like horror movie magic right here, because I got this like, oh my God, it's Alien. Look at them all.
Yeah, well, that's the egg. It opens up like a face hugger.
Well, exactly, and like you say,
I did get facehugger vibes.
he opens it up, plunges his hand in. It's the same color, the sticky goo,
Green goo.
proto, whatever it is, and then of course the spider being with its legs all folded up. When he shoves it in his mouth, it's like it looks like a little baby face hugger when he shoves it in his mouth.
Eats eggs and all.
Yeah.
Legs and all, and then he's eating the goo after a spoonful.
Oh yeah,
of goo, handful of
yeah,
goo.
yeah.
But then if you watch it again, and you might have already picked up on it, but there's a note of music, and then it repeats, and then it's like it's so that the whole thing shifts tone right there.
Yeah.
With that first music drop, because it suddenly shifts into a horror movie. And
Oh my God,
totally
yeah.
with the music in that scene, because it's very quiet. It's just sort of sound effects.
Yeah.
And then it's like this boom, boom, and we get into
Yes.
the cool soundtrack there, which lets you know, something bad certainly is about to happen, and it does.
Yeah, on a level that I wasn't expecting, and I can't figure it out. I mean, I said in my notes that the child peeling open the monolithic pod was created some sort of cascade effect, and I'm not sure how that would happen, but
Kill a bee.
well, there you go.
Can sense the pheromones, perhaps.
And then suddenly the room, like they're erupting all around him. You can hear again, not just that pulsating boom, 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 but now you're starting to get the ambience is starting to build as the other spider creatures are making their way back to the main of this cavern.
Ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kid's vocalizing again, like, uh-oh.
Well, yeah, now he's got, and in that vocalization, do you not get a sense of panic? Like, you know?
No, certainly I did.
It's gone from like, kid at the end of the driveway, hey dad, it's gone to dad. You know what I mean?
Let's not forget that we got to this scene when Amanda was scooping the eggs out of the pond back into the container, and the child goes for one, and he's like, so now the mom has got to be aware that the kid's been picking the eggs off now at this point. I'm pretty sure she's got to count.
Well, pre-show, we were talking about this, and Andy's like, had mentioned about at the end of the episode, and I totally agree. But you were saying,
just the admonishing of the kid.
Yeah,
like he's caught him a few times now, and it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not food.
Yeah, this is not food. How many did you eat?
Yeah, I told you not to do that.
Yeah.
And there are actually, in the scene when he's got it on his backpack and they're running away, when he's carrying it on his back, there are far fewer eggs.
Oh, there totally are.
Than the beginning.
So let's talk a minute about the spider creatures, because this is, I know it's only been a day, but already the internet is buzzing with difference of opinions. And I have my opinion of what I think it is, which I'm going to stand by. because I'm that type of fan. I'm going to dig my heel in.
Krykna.
I'm gonna do some gatekeeping here, and I'm going to say that this is what it is, and I don't care what you say.
Perfect. I think it's a Krykna.
So that's the other opinion, is that it's a Krykna. And we've seen Kryknas before in Star Wars Rebels, and I don't remember the name of the planet, but they were present in season 5 when the Ghost crew set up they set up their headquarters on that planet that was inhabited by the Bendu. The Bendu, played by Doctor Who. Oh my God, 1970s Doctor Who. It's my favorite Doctor Who, and I can't even think of it. Tom Baker. That's it. Tom Baker plays the Bendu. But the Krykna, nice. So the Krykna are there, and the Krykna, as we find out in that episode, or in those episodes of Rebels, are force sensitive, and they feed on the negative emotions of other creatures. So when the Ghost crew shows up, and then there's this panic over these creatures, it just feeds them, and of course they want more of that. And later we find out, Ezra, who has this affinity for animals and creatures, and Kanan are able to train the rest of the crew to just they're part of the environment. They're just, that's what they do, and
do not give them anything to eat.
Yeah, if you don't give them anything, then they'll leave you alone. But at the same,
that's one of the things that influenced me to think that these were Kryknas, because everybody in the scene is panicking.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, and they are chasing the panic.
There's a definite departure though on the visual style, and for a couple of reasons. One, all Krykna in the animated series are depicted as being 6-legged. The large white spider in the Mandalorian episode is 8-legged. The smaller ones are 6-legged, but the larger, I don't know if that's an evolution or a growth, could be one or the other, I don't know, is definitely 8-legged. But
I also know that there's that Rebels having all of its stuff based on the Macquarie art, and then you reminded me about that Dagobah painting.
Yes,
was facing off against the knobby-legged white spider.
The knobby white spider, yeah.
And that I looked at that, and it reminded me, and then I thought, well, sure, but the chicken walkers have bulbous eyes in Rebels, and they don't in any of the other mediums. So there are stylized versions,
sure,
of things that are still canon, like they exist in the same universe. It's just that we're painting Rebels with a different palette.
I think so.
I never thought that. I didn't notice the 8 and 6 leg thing. I did not notice that. I'll have to re-examine that. But nothing in that led me to believe that they weren't so different from the Krykna that we saw in Bendu's world.
Yeah.
Atola, I think it's called. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I know that looking at that painting though, and that's where I really kind of go, I wonder if this is a full canonizing of that painting. And I want to say that the knobby white spider moniker is probably a Legends title that was given to it.
Probably.
But because that's the only one there is, that's the one I'm going with.
Certainly.
But looking at that painting and then putting it up against what we see on screen, and they're virtually identical.
I agree. I do agree.
I don't feel that these are Krykna. And I'm going to just throw another thing out there too. Like, if we're talking like environmental adaptation wise, I mean, that world in Rebels was a warm planet, and this is a cold planet. So it's not impossible that they're the same, and maybe on some level they're even related. But I think that this is a unique species unto itself. I mean, that Macquarie painting was presented that creature as a native of Dagobah, which is very much a rainforesty, swampy.
I will meet you halfway and say that you are correct, that is actually exactly what it is, the knobby leg spider from Dagobah.
Yeah.
But I will raise you that is indeed the exact same thing they were going for with the Bendu spiders.
Possibly. I hope that because that was such a visual impact, I hope that there are other chances to have more screen time with them. I think we'll probably get some more detail in the gallery episodes that are forthcoming. Oh, I hope so.
They were quite illuminating in the first season.
I really, really hope so, because that is a detail that I really I want the official word on that. Go ahead, Andy.
If it's taking anything from the Alien series, there could be stowaways for future.
Well, you want to talk about that for a second? Because I'll go back to that painting. I read an article. It was just a little Reddit thing. I guess you can't really call that an article. I read a Reddit that, had suggested, did did Ridley Scott and the people that made Aliens, I guess it'd be James Cameron at this point, Aliens, did they use Macquarie's concept art as inspiration for the egg-laying portion of the Xenomorph Queen?
I'd have to hold that up against the Geiger paintings, though.
Yeah.
Because Geiger did all the concept work for Aliens.
That's
so I'd have to actually
true.
put them up against one another and check.
I guess it would really boil down to who did it first. And I mean, that the concept...
We're Geiger and Macquarie contemporaries.
Maybe.
There's certainly small circles.
Yeah.
But when you look at Hollywood, sometimes like Scorsese and George Lucas and the other guy,
Coppola,
all living together at
Coppola.
college, writing movies together.
Wasn't it Coppola?
Coppola, that's the one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I mean, Empire, that's concept art for Empire. So conceivably that was painted as early as 79, 78.
Certainly.
And Aliens, our first depiction of the Xenomorph Queen, isn't until, what, 1984, 85?
Oh, that's a good
the
point.
Queen.
That's a good point.
So maybe there's some borrowing. I'm not going to say stealing, because it's an inspired. But I mean, you look at that painting though, and you see the knobby white spider is literally spitting out one of those monolithic egg pods from its I guess a proboscis kind of mouth opening thing. Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of the shoot of the egg sac on the Queen.
Well, when the giant one breaks sort of through and starts to join them in the chase.
Yeah.
And it shoots that web as they cut through the one hallway and close. I got an ice web vibe from that.
Yeah,
It kind of looked like crystalline web.
It did.
Could look crystalline in that environment. But...
Oh, it did. It did. So now we have this big, what I call the run and gun sequence. Like it's almost like, talk about the tension, and the tension builds, and it's this like that you can't keep track of how many of these spiders are on screen at one point. There's just so many of them. And it's you're like
just blasting and blasting and
oh
blasting.
my
It led me to
God.
think: is there an end to the charge of a blaster clip? Like, is there? How's
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Think about that.
To the point where Frog Mom drops down to all fours because she can apparently move faster if she literally leaps like a frog.
So I got to back up for just a second.
Yeah, go for it.
So the scene when she's in the water, and there's the imminent threat of the spiders.
Yeah.
And she Jar Jars her tongue out to grab her clothes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And then suddenly she's dressed.
Yeah.
And so they nearly lost me there. I have to admit, I went, well, that's ridiculous.
Because of how fast she was able to...
The tongue thing was too campy for me. The getting dressed rapidly was like, oh, we missed a plot point here. We got to get her back in her clothes. I thought that was super campy. And then when she started to hop like a frog, I almost I was like, oh, no. And I was like, I don't need green rabbits from Marvel Comics, man. I don't need that. But a lot of what you said about the character development has swayed me back, and I can appreciate that for what it was. Her species certainly can move faster like that.
Yeah.
They do have prehensile tongues and maybe the ability to dress super fast.
Maybe.
So I will forgo all the camp for now.
So Frog Lady's superpower is to get dressed real fast.
So you understand where I'm coming from.
I
though.
do.
It just sort of drifted really close into mayhem for me, but then it did get pulled back. So
I do. I can definitely. I can meet you there with the whole dressing, the dressing part where it's like, yeah. But again, if she's just wearing one giant let's call it a house coat or a robe.
Sure.
It's not outside the realm of possibility, but I agree with you. I do. I do
At the end of the
agree.
day, it's probably still for kids too.
Oh, for sure. Well, I guess if you want to call me a kid.
Well,
sure.
it has to have. Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely me too.
Yeah.
But it has to, with gray hair. But it has to be about. It's probably appealing to more and more people, and that wasn't so slapstick, goofy as C-3PO with a droid body,
or sticking your tongue in the electro binder.
Sure.
Yeah,
so,
no.
It was reminiscent of, and also what you said about who the director was, it made me sort of appreciate the comedic beats a little more.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, sharing that horror beat of, the naked female in the hot tub right before all hell breaks loose.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That's funny you say that.
That's funny, actually.
Yeah. I never put that together. I was so dialed in on the spiders and the alien slash pitch black vibe that I got out of that, where this overwhelming number of creatures, where you're like,
I began to worry that
hell
the
are they
frogs
going
were
to
going
get
to
out of this?
hatch, and we were going to have a whole other kind of situation.
And then they started eating the baby spiders. No, that's just silly. What am I saying?
He pulls out some detonators.
He does. He pulls out some detonators, the same detonators that he used to take down the Outlantai in the final episode of season 1.
But if you see in the opening scene where they get flipped off at that trap, while he's flying down, the cape flies back, and you see he's restocked on his belt with those.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good grab, man.
I didn't mean the same detonator. I meant I guess the same variety, because they certainly had that same, flat on one side and round on the other. I thought he's very adept at deploying them, because he pulled 3 off in one hand and was able to singularly pitch them with very reasonable accuracy.
Yeah, he blew the top of the cavern off first. That dropped the thing to the ground, and then the sides blew up and pinned it, killed it.
Yeah.
But did he kill it?
I don't think so. I think it's the same one. I mean,
I think it's the same one as well.
On the second and third viewings, I kind of stopped it and looked at it, and it looked like it had the burn marks and
down the facial region.
Down the proboscis. Is that what we're going to call it? I don't think that's right, but that's what I'm calling it. Here's something I really liked, and I had to decide, was the tank nearly empty? But then I attributed to the cold that when Mando went to use his flamethrower, it did not immediately erupt like we've seen it in every other episode. And I thought, oh, that's cool. It's like starting a barbecue in the winter. Do you know what I mean? Like it had to warm up. Yeah. Because all you saw was like
it twice, once off camera, and it was sort of the first time was like a delay.
Yeah, you see him hold the gauntlet up, and he's looking at it, and you get this little tiny like pilot light,
blue flame,
and then whoosh. I'm like, oh, okay. So to me, that was an indicator of how cold it really is.
Yeah.
So they get back to the ship, and the one spider pins his hand like Spider-Man to the side of the ship.
Yes.
And he catches a spider in the other hand and crushes it. I thought that was a fantastic visual.
So at that point, we're led to believe that they are relatively fragile. At what point do they cease to be fragile, though, and become this like how long does it take them to grow into that big
size of a small moon?
Yeah. I wrote I put in my notes, it's the size of a land speeder.
Oh,
you know, it's huge. But there's this, the whole run and gun thing and the whole tension. I was literally sitting there watching it. I had one hand on my face, and I was like, I could feel the tension in my own chest. It's like, oh my God, they're not going to make it.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I did get that from this episode a few times. That there was a lot more tension.
There's
uncertainty.
I guess it's the Custer's last stand moment where the 3 of them and the egg canister are in the cockpit, and he's just do you remember the scene in what's that the Brad Pitt zombie movie?
World War Z?
Oh, yeah.
Or World War Z, when they were coming over the wall?
Yeah.
This
and
mountain.
No end.
Yeah, there's this mountain of spiders, and it's just never ending, and they can't get the door shut because they've literally wedged their bodies into it. And a few of them
dancing on the child's head.
Yeah, a few get in, and it's like, oh my God, they're done for. And then finally he's able to get the door shut with the
here's another reason
flamethrower.
I think there's more meets the eye about Frog Mom. She pulls out a blaster, and with deadly accuracy, shoots one off his head like William Tell, and then blasts the other 2.
That is true.
It's another kind of skill that's not just mom based.
No, but I mean, look at it. Even in, again, there is a bit of a visual precedent for lay people to have some skill with the blaster. I mean, even Princess Leia with her holdout blaster is able to bullseye a couple of stormtroopers on the Tantive before she's taken out. And that's from a culture that grew up with no weapons.
Oh, but they talk about how in Rebels she's been training for years.
I guess so, yeah.
An excellent marksman. There's a scene, I think, about her marksmanship in Rebels.
I forgot that she made an appearance in that too.
Yeah. She was 16.
Yeah. So we finally get the door shut, and it's this like, what the hell are we going to do? And
that was a big Alien moment for me, for sure, when he burned them all through the door and the door closes.
Yeah.
That reminded me of Aliens 2 or Aliens.
Yeah, exactly. getting the door shut on the APC.
You know, when she's running around with the flamethrower and they close the hatch on them. That was straight out of that.
So then it's a quick strap in, and I hope this works. So he's kind of put, pardon the pun, he puts all his eggs in the basket of I hope what repairs I've done actually take and we can get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And you think for a minute that maybe they're going to get away. He goes to fire up the ship, the engines fire up. You're like, okay, good. They've got power now. And then the big spider.
One last jump scare.
Yeah. Lands on the crest. It forces it back down to the ground. And it's like, oh no. But here's another one. How does transparent steel or canopy glass in Star Wars work?
I have the same question because it punctures the canopy
twice.
And then they fly off into space.
Because it's the only part of the ship that he can pressurize.
Do they show him replacing
they
glass?
They do. Well, not replacing glass, but at least welding something over those holes.
They do show that. Okay.
They do.
Okay.
I had missed that.
Yeah, so did I.
That I went, I'm just gonna look the other way because of how cool he looks.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. But it's, there's this whole I guess we can call it cavalry moment. I guess it's a cavalry moment.
Fully.
Yeah. You hear what sounds like, to me, you hear that familiar sound and it's like, that's an X-Wing cannon.
Yeah.
Right? The whoop. And then the big spider kind of slides off the windshield. Yeah. And then it's this cacophony of like blaster fire.
He makes his way out with his pistol in hand, still not shook yet.
No.
Firing at me with heavy cannons. I better go check that out.
Yeah. But you get that, like, still in that sort of horror movie vibe where, it's like that one guy who says, that I'll be right back and goes off on his own to look, as he's carefully, I have this vision of like these guys in these movies walking down the hallways of these buildings and like at any moment the creature could jump out at them.
Certainly.
And there's one lone one crawling up the wall that gets a blaster shot.
Yeah. And then we get outside and we're overcome with the floodlights.
I wasn't sure if they were landed or just hovering there. Because it's almost cooler to me if they're just hovering and they got the cockpits open and they're shooting with the rifles.
Turns out that wasn't.
They're quite the good shot because they're picking them off the hull.
They are. And again, I loved, continuity and consistency. The blaster rifles. They're the same blaster rifles that we saw the Hoth troopers using, and then again the Endor commandos.
Yeah, they've standardized that stuff through the video game.
It looks great.
It does really look.
It looks fantastic. So again, going back to earlier in the episode where it's like Carson and Wolf will split up and we'll cover more ground, have now come back together, and they've found them.
Well, chances are the explosions let them back.
Well, that may have played a factor into it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a mountain collapsing over there.
Sort of the good cop role because now they've run his plates, if you will, and they know who he is and what he's done.
Well, he even says we ran your tags. Like he literally says we ran your tags.
Yeah. Were you anywhere near this prison barge?
Yeah, the prison barge, Bothan 5, as it's referred to. But I like how that I like it and I don't like it at the same time because there's this tense moment where you don't know what's going to happen. It's like, hey, we ran your tags and we knew that you were there. And then he's like, is this true? And I'm like,
it gives him an opportunity. And that's a very much police tactic they give you the chance, enough rope to incriminate yourself.
Yeah. Well, this is it.
That's a very common tactic, actually.
And it's like, are you telling me that these guys have the authority to met out justice like frontier style? Like, that's not very governmental. Am I under arrest? Well, you should be. But then they take into consideration, the security footage from the Bothan 5 and that he tried to save, I think they call him Lieutenant Davin. I think that's his name.
Well, and they literally do some quick math and go, well, you took one prisoner, but you gave us 3. So
yeah,
I guess we're winning. And he does say, I'll forego the bounty if you, like he's still expecting to get paid for the 3 guys he put in the cell.
You help me fix my ship and we'll call it even.
And they basically say, that when you try to bargain with a police officer, they always have a different bargain.
They do.
and their bargain is a little bit more like, fix your ship or next time we'll blow you out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's very interesting to me because what it does is it strikes this tenuous balance between him and the New Republic, and I think you'll see the New Republic getting involved in his conflict in the future with the Empire remnants. I think this is a tenuous alliance now that we have.
When we did we talked about this pre-show? I don't think we talked about it. The helmet thing.
No, we talked about it.
Did we? Okay, yeah. I was gonna say because this is where I really noticed. Yeah. I actually went back when I looked at that first season helmet. I honestly wondered, like, and this is more of a production thing. Like, they had the issue in the first season about not having enough stormtroopers, so they got the 501st to come in and fill out the ranks of those final episodes, right? So when you're talking about your prop master, there's a limited amount of this stuff to go around. So, like, for instance, in that first season episode, all of the interior X-Wing shots are the same cockpit setup, just different actors, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's the same kind of ship. We'll just reuse that.
Certainly.
I almost feel like they reused Wolf's helmet from season 1 and gave it to Carson. Like, it almost has a very similar paint scheme, only they've added more blue to it, but it looks very much like the one that Filoni was wearing back in season 1.
Could be.
Anyway, I'm not going to go on about the helmets. It's a cool thing.
I love it, though. I love it.
Did we touch on the was it the M111?
Oh yeah.
Your thing.
So this is me really stretching at things, and I don't know. I've asked both of you.
I don't think it is.
I've asked both of you if it is a stretch, but when the New Republic shows up to escort the Razor Crest, Carson uses the call sign M111. It's like, Razor Crest, this is M111. That's how he introduces them. And I'm like, M111, what does that mean? So then I wrote it down, letter M, number 1, dash 11, M11. And then I'm like, okay, so then I wrote it out. And I wrote MONEELEVEN. And I'm like, money leaving? Is that like a nod at Paul's character in Kim's Convenience? You know, running a convenience store, money leaving. Anyway, I'll let you guys decide if the dots connect on that one. But Hank, you had said there's a precedent for that too about pilot names.
Yeah, certainly. L.O. Asti, Abrams, a big, I think he's a personal friend of a couple of them.
The Beastie Boys.
He's a big fan of the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
And the title, the Hello Nasty album.
Yeah.
L.O. Asti is definitely named after that. And I believe there's more. I just don't have them off the top of my head right now. But there are more Beastie Boy pilot names actually named after Beastie Boy songs.
I just thought it was interesting that, you know, his call sign might be a callback to his most potentially his most famous role.
It might not hit me the same way because I actually haven't seen the show.
No, well, I've tried watching a few episodes of it. It makes
sense in terms of his profession.
Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting, you know, they do eventually let him go, like you say, with that warning about how about you get that transponder fixed, and he's like, after all, these are trying times. And,
yeah, very interesting.
So,
you know, we don't want to blow you out of the sky the next time we see you and we're patrolling a sector.
So my mind immediately goes to, what does he mean when he says these are trying times? What's he getting at? Because we have this nascent government that is trying to exert their influence. It makes me wonder, is the Imperial remnant, is there more there than we're led to believe? Like,
it goes back to that warlord reference.
You know, again, that whole, are these guys as pilots, as let's say they're line officers, like frontline police officers, are their times so trying that they have the authority to do that, to just met out justice that way? Like,
I think they do, and only because of a really small detail on the side of Filoni's X-Wing, similar to in like World War II, where you would have how many, you know, enemy planes you scratched off.
Oh, yeah.
He's got TIE fighters stamped on there.
That's interesting. That's cool that they allow for that kind of,
cool.
that level of personalization, though.
Yeah.
But it's like, almost like when you put it in context with Carson's rationale, his rationale that Din Djarin had, like you said, you killed one, but you gave us 3. So, like, you know,
he literally puts it on a scale and weighs it and goes, okay, you get to go.
Yeah. So it's like, is the New Republic so fragile that they're counting on those relationships with, I don't want to say unsavories, but people who are maybe a little more gray, like the Mandalorian, to side with them should something happen?
Certainly, especially with what I was talking about before in that reference to warlords and pirates.
Yeah.
And you even get I don't know if you guys have encountered the Star Wars book. It's called the Star Wars book. I referenced it last episode, but I didn't know the title.
I don't think I've seen it yet.
There's a bit in it about how the First Order government forms inside the New Republic.
Right.
So they're like this open and encompassing style of government, which reminds you of the Separatists.
Right.
Where they let you maintain autonomy, but you're part of the collective. And so the First Order was allowed to gain power and gain money and gain weapons and build a military, all under the moniker of the New Republic.
Well, that's where
very tenuous. These are very trying times.
That is where my mind goes. I mean, 5 years. So we'll assume that the New Republic government sprung up virtually immediately
after the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah. So really, they've been around for maybe 5 years, and in that 5 years, things are so fragile. Like, it's very pervasive. Like you say, if the First Order grew out of the New Republic, then it had to be way more pervasive than we're led to believe. And
no,
so,
absolutely. In considering that you have canon, not the ghost of Palpatine, but he had sent out like robots there. It's
right.
In the Battlefront game.
That's right.
That with specific information, like you go to the unknown regions, you go to this sector and round up all the Star Destroyers you can do, and you go here and take your flight of X-wing or TIE fighters.
Yeah.
So he led specific orders how to rebuild the Empire,
how to keep going.
Yeah,
I find all that to be fascinating. I think we touched on it earlier too, like talking about video game references that kind of may be happening, concurrently with what we're seeing in the Mandalorian. But you have the whole Starhawk project from Squadrons.
Yes.
Now have you finished it yet?
I have.
Okay, so no spoiler. The Starhawk is destroyed.
That's correct.
But they build 3 more
in the Armada game.
They build, so in the lore, in canon lore, they build 3 more Starhawks, and in so going back to the Armada game very specifically states that it's a Nadiri Starhawk that was used in the final battle over Jakku to finally defeat the Empire. So are we going to see, any of that make its way into the show?
Maybe.
Who knows?
They are weaving quite the web. So
they really, really are. And I think
I've heard inklings of a new video game on the horizon too. That's supposed to be more story driven than a lot of the video games have been lately.
Yeah.
I'm super looking forward to the new holiday special. You guys aware of this on the?
Yeah, I heard that there's one coming. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
It should be fun, and I'm super, super stoked, even though it's been pushed to spring 2021 for the new Lego complete saga game with hundreds of unlockable characters. I actually love those Legos.
I haven't played a Lego Star Wars game since the prequel trilogy, so it might be a good time for me to revisit those.
They have a more open world feel now. They're not so level to level like they were.
Less platformer and more.
Feel.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. You kind of return to a hub, but the hub is a bustling center.
Right.
But it has a much more. It's not so linear like Mario style maps.
Yep.
It's much more open world.
So I guess as the episode closes off, we have everybody huddled into the cockpit, and they are able to get off world, and we have that scene. Now I don't know if this is the same scene we saw in the trailer. With the Razor Crest, with the back door hanging open and the side door busted open, and you're like, oh, they're really busted up.
I did look at that, and it just seems like there's a lot more damage. Like they just added more damage in post.
Maybe.
It does look like the same scene, but there's a lot more damage in the actual scene as opposed to the trailer.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. I just wondered if that was the same scene. Maybe it is, and like you say, there's more.
Because it's not the first time they've doctored trailers.
No.
No, exactly.
Exactly.
And let's just say that the crest is exactly what he said, limping to Trask.
It is, yeah, very much so. So, I guess it's safe to say that moving forward, Trask is the next environment we're going to be treated to on the show, maybe?
Yep.
Sounds like it.
Unless we take an unforeseen pit stop.
Who knows? I mean...
There's one little detail that where he calls up the map and plots their route.
Yeah.
And then I look at all the galactic maps I have access to.
Sure.
And Tatooine is in the sort of bottom right quadrant of the outer rim, if you will.
Yep.
And Ilum is up in the top left quadrant. And so I was starting to look at planets. I was looking to see if there was anything even remotely close to those names in the sectors to either side of the Tatooine sector. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
Found some interesting things that we could talk about later. But
oh, cool.
In the ship, he calls up the map, and Lauren was trying to turn my phone to say, like, you could just rotate the map. But I was trying to find sectors of the shapes that line up because there's kind of weird shapes. But he's looking at the top left quadrant of the map. It
looks that way to me as well.
Where Ilum is. But that is nowhere near on all the maps we have. And I don't even know if they're canon, by the way.
I'm still not going to rule out that we won't get to Ilum at some point in this season. I still think the connective tissue is there. Although, if... is it Sasha Banks?
Yes.
If her character turns out, in fact, to be Sabine Wren, and that is in fact the cloaked figure on that barge,
right?
We may not get there right away.
No. It's hard to imagine there's only 6 of these left.
Well, yeah, this is it, and I think that was part of my first viewing when I was still of the opinion that this episode might have been throwaway. It was like, oh, is this wasted?
I did think that too, and a lot of what we talked about today is helping me feel less that way.
It's a lot easier to reconcile it.
I was like, wow, like if we only have 8 hours to tell the series, why did we waste
an hour
in a hot tub?
And at a year apart, between seasons makes it all the more frustrating. But, from a development point,
they are writing a Mandalorian novel that is actually going to be in canon and tie right into
interesting.
And I think they're coming up with a comic book line as well.
So in other news. In other news this week, there's a rumor floating around that a Boba Fett series may be in development.
I said that too, yeah.
And the first thing I said to myself was, oh, that's cool. And then the next thing I said was, is this really necessary?
I don't know. It's kind of like in comic book world when, Venom's really doing well in the Spider-Man series. So they're like, let's cash in on this and throw out a 6-issue Venom series real quick. Almost too quick, and I worry about that. I know we had spoken a little bit in length about Tamora Morrison and his level of acting, and he's perfect for something laconic.
Yeah.
Having just watched Aquaman, I was starting to cringe, going, "Oh no!"
I know.
But then you pointed out his role in Spartacus, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah."
Ulpius, the Doctore,
and so. Really strong performance in that, so that led me maybe he can pull off Boba Fett, who is laconic anyway and is probably more less words and more action kind of thing.
I know we talked about the Mandalorian as being like going back to the Lone Wolf and Cub reference, and how I'd said I would watch Space Dad and Child for an unlimited number of seasons, and that certainly would be compelling to me.
Yes.
If they want to develop a Boba Fett series, to my way of thinking, the best, most effective way to do that right now in light of what we know, give me a limited series, maybe a single season that tells the story of Boba Fett escaping from the Sarlacc to the point where we see him in episode chapter 9 in the Marshal. That's all I want to know.
That.
That's all
I
I
could
want.
also handle possibly delving into the younger years of Boba Fett, and I sent you the picture of
Daniel Logan.
In the cosplay.
Yeah, it looks great.
He's actually been pushing. He's quite active in social media and pushing the fact that he is Boba Fett and ready to work.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And he looks great in the armor, and he looks great as a sort of like a 25 to 30.
He does. He's very passable. Yeah.
And we talked about what Boba Fett's age would be.
So I want to touch on that too, because I realized that when I had sent you those numbers, the numbers we were kicking around, I failed to account that Attack of the Clones is year 1 of the war, not year 3.
So we put him at 13 instead of 11.
But it only pushes his age 2 years. So I think when we had settled on by now, he should only be 36. Well, he should only be 38. And then you look up. Well, Tamora Morrison is 59.
And that's not ridiculous for actors, in Hollywood to do that.
No,
certainly they've been pushing the face tech technology here and there, and there are rumors that we're going to get some legacy characters in the Mandalorian with that face technology.
Well, I would not balk at having those characters show up. They definitely add.
Mark Hamill's been pretty vocal about the election, mostly on Twitter, but he said, "I can't wait for my new dental surgery to just so I can stop thinking about the election for a while." But then people are speculating: is that so that he looks more like maybe? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Seems like a serious thing to undergo for just to look like yourself when you were younger. But
well, there's a play. You made a play for Mark Hamill in a roundabout way when we were chatting offline yesterday about how through no fault of his own how quickly the show would end if Mando had have handed over the child to one of those pilots.
Yes.
How fast?
Yeah, I did forget to talk about that. Like, that's the end of his quest, and he doesn't. Yep. And for me, less so that the show could have ended there, and more so that he is so close to the quest and doesn't know it.
I mean, the armorer did say, Jedi, specifically referencing Jedi as being
so there's
his
no way
people.
He could know that the Jedi are in control of the New Republic, I don't think. But he must know who Luke Skywalker is.
Well, I mean, again, going back to the Star Wars story group, if Wedge Antilles can make an appearance in Squadrons, and have Rogue Squadron show up to do something in the background, I mean, you can't tell me that Wedge Antilles does not know what's going on with Luke.
And that was my direct line to that. That was these two Republic pilots who probably report in some fashion to Wedge Antilles, who is through the Rogue One or through the Rogue Squadron now. He's like the head of the pilots of the New Republic,
and rightly so.
I know that's legend, and rightly so. So my line of thinking was: baby goes to pilot goes to Wedge goes to Luke. Story over.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's not a crazy leap.
No, it's not. But it's funny though, like going back to, and this is something that's come up in Star Wars mythology before. It's like, how did we go in the span of a single generation to just ignoring the thousands of years of history that the Jedi are relegated to legendary status and like mythology, like they didn't exist.
Well, that's very true too. And you get a thing that we never got before, especially from Frogmom when she says, "Are the stories of Mandalorians just stories told to children?"
Yep.
You get that about the Jedi as well from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That there's new stories about Luke Skywalker in the future going to be told because now they put him back in that like godlike status, if you will.
Yeah.
So is there two sides of the world? Like you grow up listening to stories about Mandalorians, or you grow up listening to stories about Jedi? But I would think that it's probably more broad based, and that there are stories about both.
I don't want to make the comparison, as I don't want to stir the pot, but I mean, one does not have to look very far south of our border to see how this kind of thinking can happen in a single generation, like the denouncing science and, like the whole, I mean, just look at the political culture, that's going on south of the border right now and how split the United States is in their ideology. And it's pretty, when you look at it that way, yep, I can see how in a single generation, how an entire truth can be untold.
Yeah, I think it was a Hitler quote. "Please forgive me, but if you're going to lie, tell a lie and tell it loud and tell it often." Something along those lines. And so it is easy to see how a people or a culture or maybe even a galaxy could be subverted.
Absolutely. And
through misdirection.
When you put it back into a purely Star Wars context and what the propaganda machine must have been doing in the immediate aftermath of the Clone War to vilify and criminalize, like
you see that
the
Solo.
Jedi. Yeah.
You see that in Solo. You see they're rounding up dissidents. They're at like the average, just pick a spaceport, and they're looking for people that are dissidents, that they're
you're right.
in something other than the Empire.
Yep.
Right off the hop, they're totalitarian lockdown sort of mentality.
Oh yeah, big time. Well, guys, I think we've hit on everything that we possibly could have for Chapter 10, the passenger. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up for today?
I think we're going back to Trask. I think we're going to get a little more Frog Mom. I think there's more than meets the eye to Frog Mom. I'm going to go on the record now and say that her droid reprogramming skills and her blaster skills are going to parlay into something a little bigger.
Well, I look forward to either confirming that or blowing that out of the water. Either way, fantastic. I've been enjoying the ride, and I will continue to enjoy it for the next 6 weeks.
Thanks for having me, Wes.
6 more weeks, my friend. And hey, let's drop a little teaser right now. We talked about this. You and I talked about this earlier today. I sent you a message last night, actually.
Yes, sir.
If and when the Obi-Wan Kenobi series gets off the ground, I'd like to come back and do a play-by-play on that as well. So I already got a working title for it. I think we're going to go something like Fandom Power Presents From a Certain Point of View.
Couldn't be better.
Yeah.
Pencil me in for anything you need me for.
That's great. Well, I certainly look forward to more collaborative stuff because this has been a lot of fun. And that's it for me, guys. We'll see everybody next week. And may the Force be with you.
And also with you.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.